Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Everyday Strong podcast. On this week's episode, I'm going to touch base on nutrition and have this one solely talk about nutrition. Um, just because I think it's an area that people, when they get into health, when they get into fitness in the gym, that seems to be the first priority, which is great. As what I find with people is when they are starting back into it, I generally let training be the first priority too. Um, gets the kind of thing moving again, gets the routine built back up again, gets the body moving again, and it can feel a bit more, I suppose, productive because you're doing something, and that's great. And that's what we want. We want people to get going and moving at it again, and also thinking of training and it as more of a long term thing, overall. But what I do find is that um not people neglect the nutrition side, but they don't realize that it requires a lot of work too. And I suppose it's all contextual as well, depending on where people's starting point is, what their goals are, what they're trying to achieve overall, um, with it, and how they're going to make some changes long term, with it. So, what I'm looking to do in this episode is give maybe a little bit of mindset perspective shifts, chat a little bit about, I suppose, things that come up with people I work with, and I suppose how I coach it or the advice I give people as we're working through things. Um, and the reason I suppose as well, I created a little nutrition baseline resource guide. And be linked for this in the bio, or you can message me on Instagram and I'll send it over. And again, it's just talking about some principles of things around nutrition, where people may get stuck, the areas or things they may need to look at that they haven't really thought about, going beyond just calories and food, shall we say. Um, so like the first thing you kind of hear people will say, I know what I should be doing, but I don't know how, I don't know what to do, or I don't know what I should be eating, or something like that. Look, if to be honest, if you didn't know what to be eating, would you be here? Like, kind of you're fueling yourself and you're eating something, but I suppose again it's contextual as into what it is you're doing for your goal. Like I believe knowledge is everywhere. You can easily find out knowledge. It's the application of that knowledge and the context to a goal. I find is more so the stumbling block. How do I um apply it? And again, I think people don't give the application long enough, or don't realize how long it's going to take to make these nutritional changes that they may need to make. Um, and how they're going to build the habits around it. Like that, the same as training, like it's a habit of doing it, fitting it into your week, progressing it each week, staying consistent with it when you don't feel like doing it. Nutrition kind of maybe follows the same path. And like that, we've got more things from a nutritional standpoint going on in terms of social events, things of the weekend, in a family environment can change massively, obviously. Um, Being organized, work schedules, home schedules, commitments, and how you kind of make a baseline level of an approach to nutrition in terms of like your meal structure, what each meal looks like. Let's not even talk about proteins, carbs, fats, and all that stuff yet. Just get a basic awareness. I think this is the big thing I get people to look at first is what you're doing on a day to day. I find like people can be very much in autopilot and they don't really see what they're doing um day to day, when it comes to nutritional decisions that they're making. And again, it's decisions and what you value at certain times, um, as well come into play. But people know what to do. It's the application of it. People will have a general idea of how a meal should look. Carbohydrates, fats, proteins, or um, you know, a breakdown of that across 3 to 4 meals a day. It's generally the application of that when life is not running smoothly. It's when life gets busy, when there's social events at the weekend, when we've had a crap day at work, when we've had nothing prepared, when there's nothing in the fridge. It's more that kind of stumbling blocks that catch people out. As to that, I still don't know what I need to eat kind of thing. And again, that is there too. It can be, but again, that's not an easier fix. But again, that's more knowledge than, but how do I apply it? And like that, again, moving on, like people's general wanting to change nutrition probably comes down to a weight loss or a fat loss goal. That's probably the reason why, yeah, I need to change nutrition here. I'm eating too much, portion sizes are too big. Or it can be from an energy point of view. My energy is low. From a not eating enough point of view, or not eating, we'll say, the right types of food or the right sources for what you need. But we'll take the fat loss one first. Like, generally, people, when they're making changes, their first thought process is, I need to cut everything out. I need to cut this, need to cut bread, need to cut out, need to reduce minimum amount of calories, all that kind of stuff. But again, going back to the awareness, like, why cut everything out when you don't know what's going on, or where you may need to reduce things from, or certain things you just may need to switch around. More people, I find, don't really have an honest look at, their nutrition in terms of meals and kind of portion size, and starting from there, general awareness of what do you do on a day-to-day basis? What do you do in the weekend versus the weekday? What do you do in the evening when you come home and you're tired? And, what do you do when you have to bring kids here, there, and everywhere over the summer? What's going on in day to day, and how can we uh make some changes there first before we think about cutting anything out. I often say, think about adding something in rather than taking something out. So whether that's adding in a little more planning, a little bit more thinking, a little bit more organizing, as opposed to thinking, I need to reduce everything. Like, and find your baseline first. Find a baseline of where you're at, what you can sustain doing. Like, if we just take fat loss again, fat loss is very easy, and it's the application of it is very hard. Like, if you can get a baseline level of a structure of meals that work, time of day, organizing it, cooking it, having it ready, 80% of the time, when you come to weight loss, then and say, okay, I'm ready now to work on this fat loss. Well, if I'm just reducing quantities somewhere, or portion sizes somewhere, or juggling things around maybe a small bit, but I have the baseline there. I'm not trying to chase my tail because I don't really know what I'm doing in terms of my day-to-day actions when it comes to nutrition. So I think that's really important to do first. Take 2 weeks, 3 weeks, have a look, and like I tell people, pen and paper, write it down, have a look at what you're actually doing, and then you can make changes. And you might need to make as much changes as you think. It might just mean reducing some portion sizes here or there, or adding in some more fruits and vegetables, or more, simple stuff like that. That doesn't need to be this big all, I suppose, overthought process behind it. And not jumping to that, putting out everything straight away, because that's what feels productive. It feels like, oh, I'm doing something. But I'd rather people just don't call out anything in the first 2, 3 weeks and just see what they're actually doing. Because remember, like, if you're trying to lose weight or fat loss or reach a certain goal with body composition, shall we say, you want it to be long term. You don't want to do it for 6, 8, 12 weeks and then revert back to the way things were. You want to be able to sustain that. And if you have those uh, baselines there from the very beginning, once you finish and you get to your end goal of weight loss or fat loss or whatever the case may be, the harder part then is actually maintaining it. But if you have the work done on the front end of, or the very start of where your baseline is and what your kind of general meal setup is, well, then maintenance and the habits you've built, like the habits you've built through fat loss, should be sustainable after fat loss to an extent. Like, okay, there's going to be towards the end of weight loss or fat loss, hunger and stuff is going to become more apparent, and that's a normal part of the process. But then, okay, how do I maintain it? And that shift of maintaining it and keeping those other habits that were there long term. That's what you're looking to get. You're not looking to just get weight loss. Brand, I got there. I should revert back to the way I was before. And then 3 or 4 months down the line, you're starting the process all over again. So I think getting those, and again, I will harp on about foundations and those baseline habits in place before anything else. Um, because like that, if you don't know, if you don't have those in, no app or calorie number or whatever the case may be, it's going to make the changes necessary. And this is where it does take where it takes a lot of work sometimes, to make these changes. Like when people will put stuff into my fitness pal and that'll be it. Oh yeah, that's that done. But what have you learned from it and what are you going to apply that if you were to take the app away, you don't freak out because you haven't become conscious to what you're doing day to day, kind of a thing. And I suppose then, like back to kind of context, like I suppose I've spoken about fat loss because that's something people will always kind of change their nutrition around. Um, but again, you can have different goals with nutrition. It doesn't always have to be fat loss, and it's not a one size fits all no matter what the goal is. Like, so generally people I work with, yeah, it's fat loss and it's a calorie deficit and nutrition and the training you do complements that deficit and that building muscle or holding muscle and fitness and that kind of stuff. Your nutrition is going to be the main driver and your day to day just general activity is going to be the main driver from a fat loss point of view. But you've also got performance. And like that, I have clients who are doing HYROX, they are doing 5, 10Ks, they are doing triathlons, they are doing myself, did a marathon. Like that changes the fueling or what we call the fueling or the nutrition viewpoint completely different level. Um, because like that, I'll give the example of when I was training for the marathon, I put on weight, and you might think, well, you're doing all this cardio, you must be losing weight doing all this cardio. Like, no, running a marathon and weight loss is not the goal. They're two conflicting goals. Um, you need to not be hungry. You need to keep your energy stores topped up for one, doing the volume of training you need to do, and two, for the recovery from the volume of training you need to do. So their nutrition is a completely different. Or anyone playing sport, field sports, football, soccer, same concept. You're there's a time for fat loss and there's a time for performance, and it comes to a point where the two of them don't go together. Um, and then you have just general health, energy. Like energy thing is a big thing with people is their energy, sleep levels, improving their energy. Midday slumps, fatigued in the evening, that sort of thing. Brain fog or whatever you like to call it. That energy. That's what our nutrition is for. It's to give us energy, allow our body, help us to repair from things, have energy for things, and just even that could be a goal of just general health and energy levels. People have um just getting a consistent basis across that. That again, I suppose you're maintaining a healthy level of body fat and you know a good you can just go and enjoy life. Do you know what I mean? That's the part people forget too. That this has to complement the lifestyle that you want to have. And again, there's going to be times where, yeah, we'll have holidays, we'll have parties. Again, we're here in the summer in Ireland at the minute, and we're getting great weather, so there's barbecues and everyone's having a great time. And absolutely, because that's a part of it too. But again, if you through busier times or through times where maybe there's more social occasions going on, it keep the foundations in there of you know um, hydration, fruits and veg, bit of protein, keep it somewhat at a baseline level. you know, you can always then revert back and your eating will habits will revert back to a kind of a normal once, the holiday's over, whatever, and it's not such a big deal then once the holiday is over or the event is over. You're just getting back to what you normally do now. And I think that's a massive thing with nutrition and the principles that underline it all. And, you know, you find like people make a big deal out of uh certain things around nutrition with calling things good and bad, and the language people use around nutrition too can have an effect. And it's nothing is good or bad, it's just choices for the right time or what you value at a certain time. um Again, at the minute I say it's summer, well, I like to have a couple of ice creams and a few beers, and that's more valuable to me right now than whatever. Or if I go back to do some sort of training for an event again, but then my nutrition and my trade-offs will have to change there a little bit. So nothing will ever stay the same. It's just where you can find your baseline. Um, so like that, what I find is it's the people don't. It's not that they don't know what to eat per se. It's just the application of what they need to do. It's habits that underline it all that maybe haven't changed yet. You know, the stuff you need to build around your nutrition is going to be a lot slower. Maybe you think like fat loss, it's a lot slower, or changes even within your fitness and strength and stuff like that. It'll go at a lot slower pace than you may think. And it's all about repetition. What can I repeat over time? Meals. I often talk about having like, you know, a menu of meals for yourself or the family or whatever the case may be within reason. Like that, you have a couple of options of meals and you know what to do in certain situations. And look, you just do it and get on with it, and don't overthink it. Um, and I think it all starts with a bit more awareness of what you're actually doing day to day. I think that's the big thing, part of people skip, is that awareness. They'll jump straight into wanting to know what their calories are and wanting to know uh, what I should reduce or put out or take away, or is this food healthy, good or bad or whatever. But if I ask them what did they have for a meal yesterday, or whatever, they might be like, I can't remember. It's this awareness of what you're doing on a day to day. Are you aware that over the weekends that's maybe where whatever, or people on shift work, things like different situations. Just look at it, get at what is my baseline, what am I currently doing, and what can I change there first before looking at changing anything else. And one small change repeated over time, pick one thing, repeat that until it comes a little bit more natural, that it's just something you naturally do. Then add in the next one. And then I suppose don't overcomplicate. We hear that a lot. Don't overcomplicate it. Back as well to the training, like it's something that has to fit within your yes goals and what you're trying to achieve at different points. But it's something that has to be to sustainable. You know, the habits, as I said before, out of fat loss, in fat loss should carry on out of fat loss. It's just quantities or portion sizes or things that might change. But the general habits should always be there, or as I kind of, I suppose, like to call it now, that baseline there. So hopefully that's helpful. A little bit of a different, just maybe mindset or perspective around things. Um, with nutrition, again, you can go to so much more context with more goal specific stuff and how to set that up. So if that was something you're interested in, let me know. Again, I have my little free resource, Nutrition Baseline, that kind of talks through some of this stuff and gives you a little bit of action points as well. Just to create, again, that first level of awareness around maybe where some stumbling blocks are for you with your nutrition. The link for that is free in my bio, or you can message me on Instagram. No problem in sending it over. But any questions on that, happy to answer. Again, Instagram is probably the best place to message me there, and I'll be happy to help out. But until then, chat again soon.